The movie begins by showing Ah-Lun, shocked after learning he had died of a body burned by a lightning strike. He had also lost his memory. Shortly after, Ah-Lun met the Grim Reaper, June, who took him to the afterlife to take care of his life files. He finally realized that he had been an animal and other creatures before. At the same time, June seemed confused when she couldn't scan Ah-Lun's memory, and suspected that it was because his head was struck by lightning. That made Ah-Lun refuse to sign his death certificate because he had to find out what had happened to him. But June scolded Ah-Lun and told him to forget the past and focus on his next reincarnation. After that, June showed a video about the afterlife, which had been the biggest secret in life. The video explains that until this moment, no soul has managed to reach heaven, nirvana, holy ground, or anything in the faith of humankind. It also informs that every dead soul will get a white and black bead bracelet depending on the deeds of the person who has it during life. If all beads are white, the soul can be reincarnated into whatever it wants. But if all beads are black, the soul will vanish forever. Meanwhile, souls with 2 colors on their beads will be given the option of reincarnation into animals, or gods, and contributing to the spirit world. June again explained that the souls who choose to become gods or angels must pass a series of tests. If they are declared to have escaped, they can carry out their duties while removing sins before reincarnating. Before deciding on his choice, Ah-Lun suddenly heard a sound and immediately checked it in a room. He saw a pink-haired woman crying over her death. But then, she was upset because Ah-Lun was spying on her. The two of them argued and teased each other because of their appearance. After that, Ah-Lun got his bead bracelet, and it turned out that he could only be a snail in the next life because the number of white beads on the bracelet was minimal. Therefore, he chose to run for the god of love, who will help people find their match. Soon, Ah-Lun was taken to a place. He again met the pink-haired woman who also turned out to run for the god of love. Shortly after, a pair of senior love gods came to direct the souls who would become love gods to demonstrate how to create a red thread by touching each other's fingers. They both explained that the thread could bind someone in love. If they could make a perfect match, it would be the same as doing good, adding white beads to their bracelets. To create that red thread, it turned out that it took a pair of love gods. So the would-be love gods were also required to find their partner at the end of the training period, as a condition for the final test. When they started the theory test, the pink-haired woman felt hard and lost her spirit. Suddenly, she found a leaflet explaining how to turn into an evil spirit to get revenge. The pink-haired woman recalled the moment when a wicked man took her life. So, she decided to become an evil spirit and almost took revenge. But suddenly, she was saved by Ah-Lun, who turned out to be very concerned about her. Ah-Lun said that failing the test was not the end of everything. Even if she had to be incarnated into an animal, it was still better than turning into an evil spirit and living eternally in darkness. After hearing that, the pink-haired woman regained consciousness and was willing to go with Ah-Lun to the exam. Soon, they were arriving at that place. All the future love gods there turned out to have found their respective partners except for the two. In the end, they had to be partners to face the final test. Initially, they had trouble because they didn't like each other. The senior love god then scolded them because it was an essential condition for being love gods. They tried to complete the test but accidentally fell in love after staring at each other and managed to pass the test easily. The pink-haired woman finally introduced herself as Pinky, and Ah-Lun also introduced himself. Pinky still didn't remember anything about herself and also her death. The scene then shows the chosen gods of love begin to race to make virtue by tying the red thread to the living human souls. Those bound souls will eventually meet their partners unexpectedly until they finally love each other. So, the gods of love are considered successful in their duty to help humanity. One day, Pinky accidentally met the man responsible for her death. She told Ah-Lun that the man who killed her was rubbish and claimed to be a boyfriend but turned out to throw Pinky after using her to borrow money from loan sharks. The angry Pinky then asked Ah-Lun to match the man with a woman prostitute with AIDS. But Ah-Lun had a more exciting idea to get back at the man. He tied the male match thread to the motorcycle exhaust, making the man crazy and uncontrollable. Pinky was happy to see it even though she lost 2 white beads on her bracelet due to the malice. As time passed, Pinky tried to help Ah-Lun rediscover his memory while continuing to do their job as the god of love. But her efforts never worked. One day, Pinky revealed that she was envious of Ah-Lun who didn't remember anything about his previous life. She admitted that she often found men who asked her out, but everything was fake and nothing serious. So, Ah-Lun's presence was innocent because he did not remember anything that could make Pinky forget her past. She did not hope to be reincarnated shortly, so she could always be with Ah-Lun. One night, Ah-Lun saw a dog barking at him, and instantly his memory returned. He immediately cried when he realized the dog was the old Ah-Lun who had saved him. The next scene shows Ah-Lun's childhood. Ah-Lun helped Ah-Lun when he was harassed by some naughty boys. Ah-Lun was severely injured from being beaten by the naughty boy. Meanwhile, a woman suddenly came to pick up Ah-Lun and looked worried about the dog. Seeing that, Ah-Lun could only silently stare at her. He also realized that the woman was Chiami. She was his girlfriend while he was still alive. Ah-Lun had even liked Chiami since they were both kids. Ah-Lun had fallen in love with Chiami when he first saw her. He always asked Chiami to marry, but at that time, she refused because they were both children. Chiami said that if she accepted Ah-Lun at this time, she might fall in love with someone else in the future. But Ah-Lun replied that even if she received his love in just 1 second, he would still be the happiest person in the world. As time went on, they both grew up and became friends. Ah-Lun was always on Chiami's side, and he was never tired of asking her to marry him. Finally, Chiami accepted Ah-Lun and was willing to marry him. Unfortunately, they were separated by death just after Ah-Lun tied Chiami with a thread to propose. Suddenly he was struck by lightning while Chiami crashed far away and was injured. At this time, Ah-Lun could do nothing other than give up the adoration of his heart that could no longer feel his existence. But Ah-Lun didn't give up. He always followed Chiami and hoped that she could sense his presence. Ah-Lun told Chiami about his condition even though she couldn't hear him. He felt very guilty for continuing to ask Chiami to get married, but he instead left her dead from being struck by lightning. In the end, Ah-Lun realized that he had to accept reality and live his duty as a god of love so he could reincarnate. Although forced, Ah-Lun still had to find a new man for Chiami who could look after and love her with all his heart. But it turned out that every red thread Ah-Lun tried to tie to Chiami was always cut off, as if she refused to fall in love with someone else. It attracted the attention of the love gods, and they tried to tie the red thread to Chiami. Meanwhile, Pinky looked jealous and annoyed because Ah-Lun had forgotten her. Pinky brought the red thread directly from the afterlife to bind Chiami, but it still didn't work. One day, Chiami suddenly looked at Ah-Lun and said she couldn't fall in love with anyone else if he continued to be around her. Chiami's words then surprised Ah-Lun, Pinky, and the other love gods because it turned out that Chiami had only pretended not to feel the existence of Ah-Lun. Chiami turned out to be able to see and hear Ah-Lun because she had psychic abilities after crashing from a lightning strike. Ah-Lun immediately hugged Chiami while Pinky left them sadly. After the incident, Ah-Lun always accompanied Chiami and chatted with her. It made Chiami look strange because she seemed to speak alone in front of other humans who couldn't see Ah-Lun. The scene switches to Ah-Lun and the other gods of love waiting for an elevator. Pinky asserted that Chiami should have lived happily with the living humans. But Ah-Lun denied it because there was no red thread that could bind Chiami's heart. Ah-Lun's words upset Pinky, who said that it was because Ah-Lun was always near Chiami, so she couldn't let him die. The other love gods also regretted Ah-Lun's attitude because he should be able to understand Pinky, his current partner. When they went to an elevator, Ah-Lun realized that Pinky liked him a lot. The following day, Ah-Lun returned to see Chiami as usual. But it turned out that Chiami knew Pinky's feelings and tried to advise Ah-Lun to pay more attention to her. On the other hand, a vengeful evil spirit, Gui Tocheng, had escaped from the afterlife and threatened the safety of people on Earth. The ruler of the afterlife, known as Yama, immediately sent 2 guardians of the afterlife to capture Gui Tocheng before he made a mess. The scene then shows the past when Gui Tocheng was still alive. He was once the leader of a bandit herd who cared very much for his men. But in the end, he was betrayed by all his men who chose to hand him over to the government officials so that they would receive forgiveness and salvation. After dying, Gui Tocheng was allowed to devote himself to Yama, but he disbelieved and turned into an evil spirit. He then fled to the human world to hunt down his reincarnated subordinates and still took their lives even though they did not remember everything that happened in their previous lives. Surprisingly, one of Gui Tocheng's targets was Chiami, a reincarnation of a woman who also betrayed him. Meanwhile, Chiami met Chang, her old friend, at a restaurant. Chang tried to comfort Chiami and prayed for Ah-Lun's departure. Suddenly, a man appeared, staring sarcastically at Chiami. Ah-Lun was also there. He realized that the man was possessed by Gui Tocheng, who had been searching for Chiami for a long time. Ah-Lun then tried to stop him, while the diners fled in fear as they saw the body of the man possessed by Gui Tocheng started thrashing. At the same time, a Grim Reaper came looking for Ah-Lun to punish him for not respecting the boundaries between the 2 worlds and always relating to humans. But she saw the chaos that Gui Tocheng created and tried to capture him. Gui Tocheng revealed that he had devoted himself to Yama as the guardian of the afterlife. But he saw his subordinates continue to reincarnate, and only he could not do the same and forget his suffering in previous lives. The Grim Reaper did not want to hear Gui Tocheng's explanation and tried to catch him. Unfortunately, Gui Tocheng managed to escape from the place. After the incident, Ah-Lun and Pinky were dropped into a captivity pit in the afterlife. Ah-Lun was convicted of always being related to a living human. Pinky was convicted of abusing her powers when she took revenge on her ex-boyfriend. Pinky then apologized to Ah-Lun for reporting him to the guardians of the afterlife. But Ah-Lun was very grateful to Pinky because, thanks to her, Gui Tocheng failed to take revenge on Chiami. Instead, he apologized to Pinky for being such a shitty partner. Finally, they both made up. On the other hand, Ah-Lun's departure made Chiami feel worried about his condition. One night, Chiami went to the basketball court to entertain herself. Ah-Lun waited for her under the tree where Ah-Lun died. After playing basketball, Chiami realized that Ah-Lun was sick and lying limp because it turned out that the dog had been suffering from severe pain for a long time. Chiami began to cry after learning that Ah-Lun's illness could not be cured and realized that Ah-Lun might soon die. Chiami cried after Ah-Lun was utterly dead. Suddenly Gui Tocheng appeared in the place and immediately possessed Chiami. Gui Tocheng sought to restore Chiami's memory of her previous life. He began to cry while saying that he had considered her like his own sister and should have said it honestly if Chiami wanted to hand him over to the security forces. Meanwhile, someone suddenly rescued Ah-Lun and Pinky in the afterlife using a rope. After climbing the rope, Ah-Lun was immediately surprised because his dog, Ah-Lun, had saved him. He then realized Ah-Lun was trying to tell him that Chiami was in danger. So, he and Pinky immediately looked for a way to return to the human world to save Chiami. They both ended up asking one of the woman's spirits in the afterlife. She told them they could return to the human world through a ritual. Ultimately, they arrived in the human world right when a small group of children played ritual spirit summoning games. Meanwhile, Gui Tocheng, blinded by vengeance, tried to take Chiami's life. But two guardians of the afterlife emissaries of Yama came to thwart his intentions, and they immediately fought to the afterlife. Shortly after, Ah-Lun and Pinky found Chiami lying limp with a curse around her neck. Pinky then advised Ah-Lun to tie a red thread to Chiami and explain that it was a force of destiny that could protect someone. But the two of them couldn't even make the red thread anymore because they didn't have the bead bracelet that was the source of that power. Shortly after, the fight between the guardians of the afterlife and Gui Tocheng continued until it finally returned to where Chiami was. The two guardians turned out to be overwhelmed to face Gui Tocheng. They had to sacrifice themselves to seal Gui Tocheng before he turned into a demon. On the other hand, Yama was holding Gui Tocheng's bead bracelet, which almost turned black and left only a tiny drop of white. Ah-Lun, who saw the guardians of the afterlife fight, intended to help before he finally realized something about his previous life. Ah-Lun remembered that the bandit leader saved him when he became the cicada who almost died from the attack of a pack of ants. Ah-Lun bowed and thanked Gui Tocheng because his kindness saved him, and he could live the rest of his life happily. Surprisingly, Gui Tocheng also remembered that and cried because he realized that such a small help was significant to others. Gui Tocheng's soul was supposed to vanish because it had lost many lives. The small kindness he had done in the past saved the beaded bracelet that was supposed to blacken saved by the little white spot that was his charity. Thanks to this, Gui Tocheng was also given a second chance by Yama to correct his mistake. In the end, Gui Tocheng turned to stone with the afterlife guardians who had sacrificed their souls to seal him. After that, they disappeared into dust. Ah-Lun then returned to Chiami. Since he did not want to see his girlfriend die, he sacrificed himself to create a red thread. Pinky helped Ah-Lun and tried to find a man to tie the thread. She found Chang, who was stopping his bike from saving a snail. That night, Chiami finally remembered that Ah-Lun was her boyfriend in her past life before she was reincarnated. She also remembered that Ah-Lun had promised her that he would find Chiami, and he had managed to do that. But unfortunately, the gods of love did not bind them with the red thread of life this time. Even so, the power of destiny managed to protect Chiami because she had met the man who became her soulmate, Chang. After sacrificing himself, Ah-Lun disappeared, while Pinky dissolved in grief because she had to give up Ah-Lun whom she loves away. Luckily, Yama gave Ah-Lun a second chance to reincarnate. After what happened, Pinky resumed her duties and did good deeds until she finally got an opportunity to incarnate. Pinky then made a heart-shaped birthmark on her neck. She asked the other love gods to match her to Ah-Lun if they managed to recognize her birthmark. The last scene shows a few years after the incident. Chiami had lived happily with Chang, who had been destined for her. The same happened with Ah-Lun and Pinky, who had reincarnated into a pair of little children. The gods of love had found and bound them with a red thread. The moral that can be learned from this movie is that true love is when we let those we love go with their destiny so they can be happier, as happened to Ah-Lun who gave up Chiami.